And then I will now select to sign up to my application with a LinkedIn account. It's then going to redirect us through to the LinkedIn authentication portal, in which I can choose to log into my account. And then once I've logged into my account, I'm just going to allow permission to the app that I'm signing into. Hello, my name is Lachlan Kirkwood, and today I'll be teaching you how to create a LinkedIn authentication experience using Bubble's no-code platform. There's a few little specific details throughout this process, so I'm going to be sure to highlight everything in as much detail as possible. Let's open up a Bubble editor, and I can start walking you through the process. Over in my Bubble editor here, I've created a sample registration page that I'll be using throughout our tutorial today. And as you'll see, I just have a couple of input fields on my page, as well as an additional button that we'll be using to trigger a workflow. And of course, within that workflow, we'll be allowing a user to register or log into an account through LinkedIn. But in order to create that experience, the first thing we'll need to do is actually install the free LinkedIn plugin. So if we jump over to our plugin library on the left corner of our page here, we're going to need to open up the library itself and just search for the word LinkedIn. And now today we'll be installing the free LinkedIn plugin, which is created by Bubble. So I'm just going to hit the installation button there. Then I can close our plugin library. And the first thing you might notice is that within the settings of our plugin, we're required to add in some API keys. And these are the keys that will allow LinkedIn to speak with our Bubble application and make this whole experience functional. And I'll be walking us through a step-by-step guide with as much detail as possible, so we can not only source our keys, but build out the necessary workflows to make the sign-up experience functional. And in order to source those keys, we're just going to need to head over to the LinkedIn developer portal. So I just have a URL that I've copied here. I'm going to paste that in. Of course, I'll be sure to include a link to this within the description of this video. But if you'd also just like to search for the URL, it's just developer.linkedin.com. And if you don't already have a LinkedIn developer account, you'll normally just see a registration button in the top right-hand corner here. And that'll just prompt you to create a developer account, which can be linked to your personal LinkedIn account. And anything you create within the LinkedIn developer account won't be visible to your public LinkedIn profile. It's all behind the scenes. But because I've already created my account, I won't need to do that right now. After you have created an account though, we're just going to select the button here to create a new application. And then on the next page, we'll just be required to add in some details of the application itself. So I'm going to call this today Building with Bubble Test. And you can by all means call your app whatever you would like. What you will need to do though is also link your application to a LinkedIn page that you're a manager of. In this case, I'm going to link it with my Building with Bubble LinkedIn page. I can see I just need to add a space there, and then I can choose from the company that I manage. And then once you've selected a page, you'll be required to add in a privacy policy within your application. If you don't yet have a page, there's no need to worry. All you need to do is just add in the domain of your application and then just add a /privacy at the end, and you can always build out that page later. So I'm just going to go ahead now and paste in my own privacy URL. And once I pasted that in, I will then upload a logo to my application. And then finally, I'll just need to accept the terms and conditions of the new app that I'm creating. I can choose to create this, and it's going to redirect me to the dashboard for this application, which if I scroll on up, you'll see a couple of different options in a menu at the top of our page here. What we'll be after today is the auth keys, which is essentially our API keys that we'll need to copy and paste into the Bubble plugin. But before we do that, we'll actually need to enable the LinkedIn third-party authentication product. So if we jump over to the products tab here, right down the very bottom, we'll see an option to enable the product, which is sign in with LinkedIn. So that's the third-party authentication step we'll need. So I'm going to choose to select that. I will tick that I've agreed to the terms of service, and I will add that product into my application here. And then once I've enabled that product, I can jump over to the auth tab once again, and I will highlight my client ID. I will then copy that to my clipboard, jump back over into my bubble editor, and paste that within my API key field under my development environment. Now, one thing I would just like to note is that because we're currently working on the development version of our application, I will point out that we're just required to paste in the development keys right now. But if you were to, at a later point, publish your application to a custom URL, you'll actually need to just create another API key and add that into the live fields above. But for now, just because we're working on the development version, as I mentioned, I just need the development keys. And all I need to do now is just paste across my secret key. So I'm going to jump back into my dashboard. I'm going to reveal my client secret key. I will highlight that, jump back into my bubble editor and paste that value within here. And that's all we'll need to do in terms of integrating our LinkedIn developer API keys. Now we can jump over to our design tab and build out the workflow that will power this experience. And so if I open up our sign up with LinkedIn button that I have on our page, I'm going to choose to start edit a workflow. And whenever a user clicks this button, instead of registering an account and storing the values of our input fields, I'm instead going to want to redirect them through to the LinkedIn authentication page. And so in order to do that, I'm going to open up our first step of our workflow here, and I'm just going to type in the word sign up. And you'll see an option here to sign up / log the user in with a social network, from which I'll then just need to choose which provider I would like to sign the user in with. In this case, I'm just going to use the LinkedIn plugin that I have installed. I can also see that we might need to add in our API keys to our live version. And so the easiest way to do this is just to jump over to our plugin tab. And within our LinkedIn settings, I'm just going to copy across my development API key. I'm going to post that into my production key. And then I'm also just going to copy across my secret key and paste that into the live secret key field. And instead of later on creating two separate API products, I'm also going to show you a way to essentially just allow a single set of API keys to work across both the live and development version of your product. But for now, if I jump back into my workflow editor, you'll see that we no longer need to add in our API keys for LinkedIn. What I will just point out though is that when a user now clicks this button, it's going to redirect them through to a LinkedIn login page. But then when a user has verified their LinkedIn account, we'll just need to select which page in our application they'll be redirected back to. And within our LinkedIn developer dashboard here, you'll see an option under the Zero Auth 2.0 settings to add in an authorized redirect URL. So this is essentially the URL of the page within your Bubble app that a user will be redirected to once they've successfully authenticated their LinkedIn account. And in order to add a URL, we're just going to select the edit button here, and then we'll choose to add in a redirect URL. And to source this URL, you just need to jump into your Bubble application here. And on our registration page, this is where I'd like a user to be redirected back to. I'm going to select to preview this page within our development environment. And then I'll just need to copy this URL here. And I'll jump back over to my LinkedIn developer portal here and I'll paste that in. One thing I will just note though is that because this is the test version of our URL, it's currently just the name of my application .bubbleapps.io, and then it's followed by the URL string which identifies this is the test version of my product, and then also the page structure. So my page is called registration new. What I am going to need to do though is just select after the name of my page and just highlight any additional characters after that. Normally you'll find that the URL contains a string to activate the Bubble debugger. What I'm going to want to do is just remove that from this URL structure here. And then I will choose to update this URL. And remember before how I mentioned that we could link two different versions of our application to one set of API keys. So both our development and our live versions. This is where you can also create that experience. So if I was to open up this pencil icon here, You could also add another verified redirect URL. And if you're hosting your application on a custom domain, you could paste in that separate value here. For the meantime though, I'm just going to delete that because I'm happy with just my development URL there. And now this whole registration process should be functional within our Bubble app. Before we take a preview at how it functions though, I'd just like to show you how we can actually display the information of a LinkedIn user within our application. So if I jump back over to my Bubble editor and open up my workflow here, after I've registered a user's account, they're going to be redirected back to our registration page. But from here, I can add in whatever additional steps I'd like to make this workflow functional. So in my case, I might redirect them through to a settings page in my application, where I'd just like the user to verify the details that we pulled from their LinkedIn account. And so I'm going to add an additional step to my workflow, choose from a navigation event, select the go to page option. The destination page will just be my settings page I have here. And because I don't have a content type stored on that page, I won't need to send any data through to it. If I was to then also open up my settings page, I'd just like to show you how I've structured the data that I'm displaying on this. So if I open up my design tab here, you'll just see that I have a few inputs on this page. And what I'd like to do is just display some initial content so that way I can showcase the details that I've just pulled from a user's LinkedIn account. And you might see here that I've already added it into my input fields, but I'll just take the time to show you how to do this again. So I'm just going to remove all of this initial content here. And let's say I'd like to display the user's full name that we pull from their LinkedIn account. I'd like to display the initial content of the current user. You'll then see an option to integrate their LinkedIn data. And then you can see a list of all the data that you can display. In this case, I want to display the user's first name. And then of course I'd like to display their last name after that. So I'm going to add in a space. I'll insert dynamic data once again and display the current users, their LinkedIn data, their last name from that. And then for the profile photo here, I just have a picture uploader element. You could have an image element if you'd like as well. And for the dynamic data, I'm just displaying the current users, LinkedIn's profile picture. Let's jump on over into our registration page now and take a preview at what this whole experience looks like within our Bubble development environment. Over in the preview of my application here, one quick thing I'd just like to note is that because within our LinkedIn development portal here, we'd set the authorized URL to be the application domain without the debugger URL string. If you're previewing your application, I would recommend just making sure you remove that before you choose to sign in with LinkedIn, or else you might find that the URL strings don't actually match, so it might not allow you to sign in. So I'm just going to select from the additional URL parameter here and just remove that. I will then enter that in and refresh my page. And then I will now select to sign up to my application with a LinkedIn account. It's then going to redirect us through to the LinkedIn authentication portal, in which I can choose to log into my account. And then once I've logged into my account, I'm just going to allow permission to the app that I'm signing into. And now it's going to redirect me back through to my initial Bubble page, in which my workflow will also kick in and send me through to my user settings page. And what you'll now see is that that initial content within my input fields is fetching both the name and my profile photo from my registered LinkedIn account. And just like that, you can see how easy it is to integrate your own LinkedIn authentication experience into Bubble and then begin to display a user's LinkedIn data within your own application. If you'd like to stay up to date with any other tutorials and guides that I share, be sure to hit the subscribe button below so you can be the first to know when I drop a new video. Until then though, I wish you all the best on your own no-code journey.